Torres!
I think I'm missing 800 from one of the registers.
Anybody knows anything at all about this money, you make sure it gets told.
So we're here with Ivan Orlic, the producer of La Cocina. And Ivan, dude, I just have to say immediately, fucking masterpiece. Masterpiece. And when I think of why we all get into this crazy business, the circus, kind of like your movie. Like if I made that movie, I would die happy. That's it. Like I would have felt like, right, left it on the field. It's something that could be in a museum. Done. So, wow. I just have to tell you, wow. It's a masterpiece. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's very kind, and we're quite proud of Alonso and the work of all the artists who came together to tell this story, which, as you know, is an adaptation of a play from Arnold.
I did not know that.
From the 50s. It's a bit of a loose adaptation with some freedoms taken. We think it works really, really well, and are also proud of our cast and the great job they did to bring this story really to life, as well as the spirit behind the film itself, which on the one hand, on the artistry side of things, is meant to add another grain of sand to the argument that black and white film does work and should be celebrated more than it is, rather than seen as a challenge for distribution. It should be embraced more. And that was one of the goals of the project, though of course the main one was to bring this story to the world in a way that really highlights the struggle of the immigrant, not the typical story of somebody trying to escape a struggle or somebody struggling to arrive somewhere, but a rather less told story of what happens after you've arrived. It isn't necessarily a happily ever after once you've arrived, and those of us who are immigrants in the States in particular, that tends to be the country that attracts immigrants kind of almost as a beacon. We all know that there are new challenges in the new world. It's not that it's worse, it's just that it's different. And in this particular story unfolds over one single day in the lives of this group of immigrants from different parts of the world who all work in a specific restaurant that's kind of like the typical Times Square restaurant in New York City. Mm-hmm. And Alonso chose black and white and made other creative decisions to try to place the story almost outside of time so that it could be unfolding in the 70s or in the 90s or last year.
Wow, you answered I was about to ask you that, and you beat me to it. About the black and white aspect of it and how you guys chose it. Or was it ever going to be a version of this in color, or was it always black and white from the beginning?
Yeah, it was. It was always Alonso's vision that this be in black and white, and I think Juan Pablo's cinematography, which is being recognized for the incredible work he did with this kind of like silky smooth look to the black and white. We're very proud that he is nominated for the Film Independent Spirit Awards for Best Cinematography, as is Alonso for Best Directing. And it's,
had they worked together before, or was this their first time?
No, this is their first collaboration. Yeah.
Nice. Ivan, so I want to get into all the technical aspects because there's so much to talk about. Like you said, the casting I thought was absolutely perfect. The camera movements, the design of it all. But first, I just want to talk to you about the feeling, because I think it's a movie that's going to stick with me forever. And when you right now, when you're talking that we're saying it's about immigrants, and sure, there is that huge aspect of it. Even the restaurant owner is an immigrant, right? Yeah. But what I loved about the movie was that it didn't like hit these subjects on their head. And right. I think it's Sidney Lumet's book, right, Making Movies, that says like, was it Sidney Lumet? I might be confusing directors right now, but take the audience like 80% and then let them go that extra 20 themselves. And I think this movie left that space for the audience to go that 20% all the time. And so it wasn't just like, the immigration theme was there, but it wasn't like, oh my God, like this story about this one immigrant or or the abortion topics, or I mean, just let's just talk about the kitchen. I mean, I watch so much Food Network. I watch Chopped. I love restaurants. I thought I knew a kitchen. I'm never going to see a restaurant the same way ever, ever. And yeah, man, it really I thought it was just a perfect movie.
Thanks.
And yeah, it's going to stick with me forever.
Thanks. I know
Congrats.
Alonso would really appreciate that as well, and that he had this idea from the very beginning not to make what sometimes is called a food porn movie. And it's not all about making the food look as pretty as possible. It's more about living with these characters in a slice of life, one day in the life of, and food happens to be the way that they make a living, the way that they find their way in the world, is providing this service, a service that is undervalued in society. We, in fact, as part of our distribution of the film in North America, worked with a great distribution company called Willa, founded by Elizabeth Woodward, a great friend, and partnered in that distribution with nonprofit organizations, especially One Fair Wage. It's the largest organization in the US that is fighting to close the loopholes to the minimum wage in the country. There's millions of people, I believe it's about 12 million people, that are working under minimum wage legally. And because of these loopholes that mostly affect service industry, mostly affect restaurant industry, and shouldn't, I don't see a reason why they would be there, and why we are overworking people who are providing such a basic service to our society that we once upon a time, when we were in a pandemic, kind of all learned to call essential workers, and so quickly have once again forgotten. There really is no reason why we should apply a minimum wage to everybody except certain groups. So One Fair Wage is doing really important work, and we're proud to have partnered with them in the promotion and distribution of the film. I think that within the story of that struggle, it's really powerful to see how our protagonist's character is also trying to find what is his American dream. And I think we all have our own version, and in that way connect to the story through his eyes.
I love, kind of connecting a couple of things you just said. I love how, you start the movie with a different character, right? And then you meet your lead a little later.
Yeah.
And I think that you guys played with this formula throughout in a very interesting way. I think, again, to not make things like over their head. Talking about the food porn that you mentioned a second ago, I think you guys did the same thing, where it's like there is a mini scene of the sandwich that was amazing. I'm like, I want to eat that sandwich, and that's that food porn. And like when she has it, it's like, this is what I can give you, and it was amazing. It worked there. I have a friend of mine who saw your movie and said they have this insane oneer. I wish they would have started with the oneer, and I think he's completely wrong, because again, it's not when we see that oneer, it's when we already know these characters and already feel their struggle, and it's when the circus is at its maximum.
Yeah, I think Alonso did an amazing job creating this world with so many layers, and that's so rich, and where each character relates to each other character so specifically. And in order to build that, he had in mind that the kitchen is kind of like a pressure cooker, almost like working inside a submarine, is how it was discussed on set, with a cast that we had the luxury of bringing together for several weeks for rehearsals, which is not a luxury that most independent films have. But this was something that we prioritized in following Alonso's priorities to create this world. Alonso, having so much experience from the world of theater, a world that we also love, had this inclination, and it paid off, really, really well, having each character be so so specifically relating to each other character, even the ones that don't have dialogue between each other, when they exchange looks or pass each other, because they have weeks together where they've played improvisational games and other theater games as their characters for weeks ahead of the shoot, they're passing each other in a specific way. It's like, I know who this person is to me as the character. And I think that kind of brings the world to life in a way that cannot be faked, you know,
Right.
in a way that is organically in the actors. And we're really happy that we're able to do that on this film.
3/4 of the way into that oneer, 3/4 of the way into that oneer, the blonde guy gives him a look, and
Yes.
that's all you needed. And I mean, and crazy that it all worked out with the timing, and
Yeah.
but you felt so much with one quick look, or when I think she's Puerto Rican, the Puerto Rican waitress, the one that explodes and causes, you know, him to lose his mind. You know, by the time she's like, you know, pulling in and grabbing the food with her fingers, like, honestly, I had so much anger for her as well. I don't know. I guess, in the guy's shoes. It all those relationships that he connected during the entire movie. Just, dude, like, I couldn't find like one weak link relationship.
Yeah, thank
Ivan,
you.
question: how did you connect with Alonso, the director? Was it like something he brought to you, or was it how were you guys matched?
Well, this is a story that Alonso's been wanting to tell for many years. In fact, I understand this was the film he wanted to be his first film. And then it's taken such a long journey because I think the industry tends to be, and increasingly so, risk averse. I think that is stifling some. Of course, there's creativity that shines through the challenges, but I think we could do a lot more to nurture stories that take a little bit of a bigger swing, that take, you know, a little bit extra risk, that are willing to go in black and white, even when distribution is telling you you might have a better shot if you didn't. I think
Right.
that we're missing out otherwise on creating some very special gems by trying to lead with risk mitigation rather than with kind of like optimistic creativity. And Alonso always did, and I think it's fifth season really that was the key piece. But it's Lauren Mann, my fellow producer on the project, that introduced us. And once we all came together, I think it's been a really strong team. The production having been led by our fellow producers out of Mexico, Gerardo and Ramiro, that did a great job during the shoot, and then kind of a team effort since then. But I've loved Alonso's work ever since I first saw any of it. And it was actually at a screening series attended by Gael Garcia Bernal, who did a Q&A after we all had the great experience of watching Museo.
One of my
a film
favorite
that
films. I love it.
absolutely love so much.
It's incredible.
As-
It's incredible.
As is true for all of Alonso's work. And I remember it's one of the times when the next day at work, I came into the office to tell everybody, I just saw a film, write this name down. It is our objective to work with this director. And a
Nice.
few years later, luckily and fortunately, here we are. We got to have the opportunity to work with him.
That is awesome.
So, being such complex sequences, right?
Yeah.
But let's talk about a different one, not the oneer, right? Let's talk about, for example, the locker room scene. So much coverage. And then, certain shots where, like, you're racking to the person in the mirror talking, etc. Like, was that like getting everyone rehearsing and start placing the camera in different areas because there was so much, or was this boarded somehow?
I mean, this film is rather carefully choreographed,
Yeah.
almost like a play. And in fact, it was rehearsed as one, almost like really early pre-production and throughout during this window of the special extra long rehearsals. I think that really paid off here as well. And I'm a huge fan of over planning in order to then on the day have flexibility, but you can always fall back on the very specific plan you had prepared, right? In the moment, you want to be ready to kind of engineer serendipity, if you will. But having the plan behind you, I think, rather than tying your hands, it actually frees you, because you know that you can always fall back on it if your kind of spur of the moment serendipity isn't.
And I guess that's that, because I actually have no idea what the budget is. I'm not here to ask you, but in my mind, it's like it's still an indie film,
Absolutely.
but the amount of work that's in here, it feels like you guys like needed an insane budget. That's why I'm asking that, because everything, like you said, is so planned and prepared and executed perfectly. I mean, let's just talk about the flooding scene. That's insane.
Yeah, yeah. The entire back room, back of house of the restaurant, the office, it's all constructed in a stage at Churubusco Studios, the historic studios in Mexico City, where so much Mexican film history has taken place, from Cantinflas to now.
Amazing.
And, the cherry Coke scene is actually, it's inspired by an experience Alonso had years before, when he went to the cinema with his wife and was walking around, and he stepped on the carpet and was a bit sticky. So he followed it and found that, in fact, the soda machine was leaking, and there was a little bit of a flood. Obviously nothing compared to the one in the film, but it turned out to be cherry Coke. And the film that he was watching that night with his wife was The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. And when he walked out, the story goes that he said, "I think Rooney Mara is the right actor for La Cocina."
Wow.
So, and then obviously, heightening that moment. And I think what was striking was maybe not exactly apathy, but somewhere the employees he informed, "Hey, your soda machine is leaking," were very matter of fact in their response, as in, "Yep," rather than rushing to fix it. And I think that really struck him, and he brought that and many other stories that since then he both had since then visited lots of kitchens and talked to different restaurants in Times Square and the workers there. But also having his own personal universe of stories from having worked in restaurants himself when he was younger, that all bring kind of authenticity to different details and moments in the film. That being a scene that, of course, is very striking, and it was super fun as well on set, as much as it was also a bit messy, I'll say.
Funny, Javi and I starting this film festival and seeing the back offices of movie theaters and movie theaters when the lights are on. Let's just say it's been interesting as well.
Or we might have some matter-of-fact opinions too now.
Yeah. Ivan, so that sequence with the flood, was that like a week long of a shoot?
Pretty much. Pretty much. It was probably the second most choreographed thing after the oneer, which probably took half of the preparation in itself. Lots of rehearsal and choreography.
Yeah, man. The casting was phenomenal. I mean, I loved seeing the owner, who last time I remember him was from The Mummy. I hadn't seen him, I think, since The Mummy. I'm sure he's in a lot of other things, but I was the guy from The Mummy. We were really lucky also to be embraced by so many great festivals over 2024, kicking off with being in competition in Berlin. The first time I have an opportunity to have a film there, and that was really special. Coming to the US, premiering in Tribeca for North America, with the film being a New York story, a New York-based story, was really special for us as well. And now the recognition, we're super thrilled about Spirit Awards for both Juan Pablo and Alonso, whose work, we couldn't agree more, deserves that kind of recognition. And among all of the great artists who are being recognized in the same way, that it's been a great year. I thought, for me, it's the best movie I've seen of the year, for sure, period. I can't think of another one. So we're so honored to have you as as our opening night film. It's our second year ever. This year we finally, like last year was only a short film competition. This year I have a short film competition, a student film competition, and a feature film competition. So it's an honor to have a movie of your caliber be our opening night and be in competition at our festival.
Thank you. Yes, and we are thrilled to be a part of it as well. I so enjoyed attending last year, and I hope to be able to come many more times.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ivan. Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks.
Opening night will be January
16. Then we have we have a opening night drink soiree after. We have the next day the big party at Mr. C that we hope you stick around for this year. Actually, last time it was before your screening. That's what happened last time. And I mean, it's 4 days instead of 3 this year, and we have events every day, and it's going to be a fun time.
Excellent. Well, anybody out there, January 16th, if you're in Miami, you know where we'll be.
Nice.
Definitely.